But with that said, though, a couple of housekeeping notes to begin here. We should be good to go on YouTube, right? Good to go there? All right, cool. So with that, at least if you're joining us on YouTube, a couple of new things with our workshop here. A little fancy bells and whistles with the webcam and stuff. But you should actually see the cyber group chat room, the chat at least with all of our students and members there right now, running a little feed at least for this next hour with us. But if you're joining us inside our live trading room, you don't need to go anywhere. As always, we simulcast this workshop every Monday afternoon. So I got asked from a student before we begin with all of this here, at least. If you see at least behind me, I still got my nice little Hanukkah wreath set up right behind me here. I was asked from a student, why do you still have it up? We're after the new year. You got to take it down. A couple things. First off, there, smart guy. It is January 6th. Hanukkah ended on the 2nd, mind you. So we're only 4 days late. We're only 4 days lazy here. I know some folks that still have their Christmas trees up and won't get them down for the next couple weeks after. One of our students, Leda, actually handmade this Hanukkah wreath. So I'm going to keep it up with pride. It's not just me being lazy here, but we'll keep it up for the next couple weeks here. But at least with this, you know what? Jobby, let's actually just start off on this trade, at least for right now. It's not like the biggest, mover of the day. It had a good move from Friday. The stock ran really well Friday morning for us. And if you've been following along, especially on your YouTube stream right now, of course, as a student, you definitely are in the know. But even if you're on YouTube, you know that Fausto has been a huge fan, a huge proponent of these robo-taxi stocks, air taxi stocks, however you want to label them, namely ACHR. If you go on our YouTube channel, we still have that video we just posted from last week, I think, going over his thoughts about Archer and the future, at least, with the air taxi, robo-taxi stuff. Well, long story short, this company here ran up very well from November all the way through. Was the hotter hand from the last few weeks, at least. Jobby ran up, nicely at first too, but this fell into a bunch of consolidation, right? Just holding double top, higher lows, going sideways a bit at least here. And then finally from Friday, stock ended up popping, and then right now it leads us to this move here. So, I want to go over other trades. We cleaned up on Fubo earlier today, and we cleaned up on a few more from our morning watch list that we had. GFAI, a few more within the AI sector. This, though, is still not giving up. This thing is still just kind of nipping and testing this $10 decade level number here as resistance. So normally my thought process is the more times it could test this big level in a smaller time frame. That's the caveat here, folks. The more times it could test this level in a smaller time frame, a smaller instance, it's more prone to make that pop. So if you follow along here, this stock had maybe a couple moves here where you could have had the thought to try and jump in. I waited on this test here where it did break over $10 pretty nicely. I'm thinking again, the more times it nips and breaks over it in a smaller instance, let it have that false breakout once or twice. We're human beings. We're never going to get it picture perfect every time. There are plenty of times where I'm too cautious and the stock will pop without me. There's plenty of times where I'm there, right place, wrong time, and I have to take a small loss. Happen. But at least here, though, the last time it broke over 10 from this time here at 10:04 in the morning was right here. And that's at 11:37, right? 11:37 from 10:04. That is way too long in between level tests and nips and breaks of a level. So right here, I would not be bullish whatsoever. But the thought process still stands. The more that this can keep testing this level, especially now more so here, over the last 30 or so minutes, it's been giving it a shot. So if this could re-break over 10, hey, let's try and see a higher high. If it's not going to make a lower low and dump off from resistance, it's not doing that for a reason. So the more times it could at least press up against it in the smaller time frame, then that leaves me to think it's more possible for it to pop. Going back to Archer, they kind of go hand in hand. This one's backing off a little bit, so if the whole sector, those stocks begin to tumble off, then there's no new entry on the trade. But that's something that we always focus on here in Traders Talk every afternoon. It's this whole, as I like to say in class now, this whole popsicle stick effect. The more times we keep flicking and snapping and twisting and bending, this little flimsy level, this little flimsy popsicle stick, it would be more prone for it to make a more decisive reaction. So dropping back down now, so I don't know if we'll get our move here coming up. But let's go over then, in that case, the more entertaining of the two stocks. What do you know? Fubo here. This thing has been a beast today. So really quick, inside our live trading room, I just want to ask here, is anyone currently in this trade live? I'm not. If anyone's in this trade live right now as we're talking, let me know. I took 2 trades on this earlier today for profit. Not the biggest, not the best. I wish I was in the same one I was in from just before here. But Kath, you're in it. Kathleen, one of our Diamond students, in it currently. Excellent. Cool. And, hey, I just asked to ask. I asked to engage in conversation. Ask because I'm curious, right? It's a Monday. Normally, Mondays aren't the best trading days. It is right after a federal holiday. Not only that, housekeeping note, folks, one more time here, since it's more unusual in terms of life, of course. But, of course, with the passing of former President Jimmy Carter, markets are going to be closed on Thursday. This is not the greatest week. We're coming off a holiday. We have a day off coming up this week as well. Not only that, timing of the day. Not just day of the week, but timing of the day. 12:11 Eastern time. This is kind of garbage time, right? Between you and me, it's kind of garbage time where you don't really expect to see much. So if you're not in this trade, no sweat. There's always going to be other stocks coming up later inside our live trading room for us to take advantage of. But, at least let's cover this. Why did this pop? How did it pop? How did we jump in where we did? So we'll do that here in just a moment. So Fubo, the news out on this stock was pretty cool. I feel like most, folks, today, I mean, not everyone, but, most folks watch TV. They have some sort of show they stream. There's something that you watch, right? So a lot of us at least are familiar with who Fubo is, what they do. Basically, they are, movies, TV, live, kind of to a degree similar to like, Hulu, right? Hulu, you could say, like a YouTube TV, something of that nature, where you pay monthly and you get live, television, movie shows, etc. Now, they ended up completing a agreement, a merger. I think they're calling it an agreement, whatever. But basically, they're joining forces with Hulu. Hulu and Fubo are now together now at this point. So, to compete against YouTube TV, to compete against Netflix now, by the way, and Amazon Prime, of course, too, you got to join forces, or maybe you get bought out by one of those larger companies. But either way, they had to do this, basically, in my opinion, to at least catch up or retain some of the market share, if any. Either way, whether you think that's going to work out for them in the long term or not, it led to an enormous reaction out of the stock, right? So obviously, we don't focus as much on the news like we do, but that doesn't leave us to just buy this stock, right? And our students inside our live trading room know that, right? Kathleen, I see here. Got some other names here too. I see Steve, I see Michael, I see Laureen, I see Charlene, maybe just logged in right now. But just, it's to say that already that we're not just jumping into a trade because of news. And we're not just jumping into a trade because it's going up. We're jumping into a trade because it's breaking through a big level on the way up. So yes, this had popped at 7 o'clock, and by 7:45 in the morning, when we normally post our pre-market watch list, it was on our watch list, right? It was one of 4 or 5 stocks that we put on there at the time. All right, right away, for a pretty inexpensive, cheap stock, I want to hear from our students here. What price levels are more likely to be the iceberg levels? For a cheap stock like Fubo here, what price levels are more likely to be the big icebergs out there? What do we got? Sam says, call it Hubo. Get it? Fubo, Hulu. Yeah, there we go. Vinny, Gillis, Lynn and Randy, Patrick. There's Charles. Give him a big shout out in just a moment, alongside a bunch of us. Laureen, Dave, 50-cent levels and whole number levels, right? So where we think about that, where is this stock trading before 8 o'clock in the morning? Before 8 o'clock in the morning, where is this stock trading underneath? Well, right at 8 o'clock, I think it broke over, maybe just beforehand. But $2, right? $2, whole number here. And what was it? Yeah, a little bit before 8 o'clock. I guess it did make its initial test. All right, the same to be said here. The same to be said here as we just did on Jobby. The more times it could retest that level in a smaller instance, it's more prone for it to make that better move, that better pop. So give me a moment. Give me a quick minute, I should say. All right, so first test here on this candle, pop, drop, whatever. But the more times it keeps fighting and nipping and trying to test that level, it's more prone for it to make that better move. So this is easy to say in hindsight, but it took a couple stabs up and it flipped it into support, right? Flipped it into support, then from there kept going. Now that's the easy to say part here in hindsight. But you know what? This may also be easy for us to go over in hindsight, but this will show us actually where the levels were, because that's an assumption. $2. Oh, that's an assumed level. Oh, like $2 whole number level. And in pre-market, yeah, there was something there. About 44,000, about 54,000 at one point, right? So I would say, yeah, $2 is a level. What's your next level though? Like, before 8 o'clock, what's your next big red line here? What's your next big orange line above $2? What do we got? If you're joining us right now on YouTube, Facebook Live, etc., again, hit the follow, hit the subscribe button. We'll make this much more professional as far as the stream goes. Be easy for you to see that. At Cyber Trading U, should show it right there in the nameplate. What's our next big orange line, red line that we got here on the screen? $3, right? I mean, hey, if it could break over 2, is it just going to run right up to 3? Not expected, but if there's enough bullish momentum here, then I'd like to think it's going to try and get somewhat close to it, maybe go halfway there. If it only makes a more underwhelming move up to 210, 220, and then back down, then this will just be like any other pump and dump type stock. It'll be a fail, come back down, right? We know what happened after the fact, obviously, but here, there's still some thought for this to like fail and shake back down a bit. And of course, it ended up holding over it as support a little bit later on, as we had said. Now, a couple things here. Order on the bid shows up at 170. That's nice to see. That's great to see, in fact. That injects a bunch of buying pressure, at least you'd like to think. And the stock reacts well off of it. So that's the easy to say part. But looks like your next resistance, your next somewhat big resistance at 229, 230. Long story short, with that level, it blows right over it. I mean, it doesn't just nip and come back down. It just blows right through that price, goes up about nearly 20 cents. So, you know what? It's the first Traders Talk of the calendar year, much like I had you do with me in class from last week as we wrapped up, basically, the December classes. I'm going to have you answer this question for me if you don't mind, folks. If a stock is going to break right over resistance and runs right over it, stock breaks resistance, it flies, that resistance should initially look to become what? I mean, we just saw it at $2, but the same basically happened over time at $2.30. There's definitely some messy stuff happening here on the order book, some order being posted up here, maybe an algo, whoever. But it's just to say, for the 230, 229 level that did show up here. Orange line, it blew right over it though. So that resistance you would imagine could become support. And sans just one shake under it here at first, it popped right back over it and it got the job done pretty much immediately after. So, 230 was actually a pretty decent level at that point too. Now, of course, this thing launches though. So you could even go into 50-cent level here. This, though, is like a very fast break. This is already moving. The wheels are already spinning forward here. And that's easy to say, but given what happened at 230, if you're not in this trade yet, and this thing's trying to inch up, I would be looking for a few tests of 250 first as resistance if you're not already in. If you're not already in at that point off 230, 250 is your next level. This is just where it's tough if you miss out on the previous levels that you could have taken it from beforehand, because this doesn't just nip and kind of struggle at 250 at first. This blows right over it. It doesn't come back down. Doesn't come back down as support. You might be looking for that, but given how much it already ran, this thing was just moving. This thing was cruising here. I mean, not only over 250, but over 3. Blew right over 3 and kept going up, right? Now, of course, if you miss out on a move like this, and let's say the stock is up X amount of percent, whether it's over 100%, under 100%, whatever it is, if you feel personally that you had missed out on the majority of this move, and you say, all right, shoot, I don't know if this is going to move up much more. Let me just find something else here at this point. It's almost 9 o'clock. It's almost the market open. If you had missed out on this, that's where I would say it's not so painful for you to miss this last leg. It really is not. Why? Because we're not trying to be weathermen out there and weather women out there. We're not trying to predict exactly how much percent it's going to go up to and say, oh, well, it's definitely going to make this big of a move again after. No, I mean, the stock was at $1.70, I think, right? $1.50 when it first started moving this morning. So it was over 3, it was up to 4. If you thought this was going to pull back at that point, and you're like, shit, like, I don't think there's much worth it here left on this, let me just focus on something else. That's the right idea. My friends, that's the right idea. Because again, yeah, this did move up a little bit more. You normally want to be out of your trades, generally speaking, by 9:10, 9:15 in the morning, the utter latest. Allow this stock a chance to breathe and relax, maybe take a sip of water in the process. Allow yourself to take a step back, take a deep breath and just kind of see what else is out there heading into the market open. But it's just that here, yeah, pushed up a little bit more, dumped off after, right? Now, this is where we could talk about like preparation going into the market open. So we went over that more so in our phase 2 classes to a great extent just from last week. But where I say, hey, what's the trend of this stock leading into the market open from 8:30 to 9:30, from 9 o'clock to 9:30? Well, that's actually going to give you 2 separate answers. Because if you're basing it from 8:30 in the morning, way earlier, it's still technically like a higher low in building maybe. There's a chance for this to build and go. From 9 o'clock going into the open, the final 30 or so minutes before the opening bell, it's not like this is like tanking and making lower lows again. It's not like there's mass selling pressure here on this just yet. But the 25, 30 minutes before the open here, it's not like making higher low, higher high. It's not like we're seeing new buying pressure coming into this. So does it shock me that this just drops off right away at 9:30? It doesn't shock me. Does that set up a short opportunity? Does that set up an opportunity for you to try and short? Maybe, but. First thing, trend is your friend, right? I mean, there's a reason why this thing is rocketing on up now at this point again, right? It built support, never broke lower, ran up higher. So you don't want to go against the grain. You don't want to go against the grain in speculation. But if there is a viable level, and meaning support here, like if there's a massive support level that's getting poked at, tested, and if that support level breaks, and the stock makes a lower low, that right there would be a much more apropos moment to try and short after like a big run up. So did this drop off at first? Yes. Now here's like the little annoying stuff with this. You really shouldn't be entering any trades from 9:10, 9:15 leading into the open. You don't really want to wait till 9:30 at least for that, or as we'll say now, wait for the first 5 minutes. You don't want to take a trade within the first 5 minutes regardless. That's just something we preach in phase 1 class that we have. But does this break support at 4? Yeah. It just doesn't do it really in the time area that I'd be as more aggressive to take that trade. So point being is that market opened up. It dropped off, which doesn't surprise me, but there's not really much of a buying opportunity. Normally, I'm expecting a bounce, a reversal around 10:30, right? And you could say this started to make a good move up at that point. I got my hands onto this trade. It wasn't like a big win. I wish I obviously held on. But, I was not as confident that it would run all the way back up the way it's doing now. So at least to take some money off the table, I felt happy with where I got. And this is where I'll say, at least the more this was dropping and coming down, I am thinking initially like, okay, if this comes down to $3, okay, that could be your support, right? A whole number level. Absolutely, that's a good assumption. However, though, we could look at Bookmap, of course, for this coming up next, but this is where I'm looking at like the pre-market and how much this stock ran up. Where do we have support building in pre-market? Where do we have support building? I'm just sloppily putting the lines here. Around here, 370-ish, 365-ish. And before that, not much, but it popped up, it pulled back, and then it built back up again. What is that, 315? So this stock had like a couple of instances where it nipped under and over, and I took it, I think it was on this candle here. Once it broke under and over here on this one, thankfully I didn't get stopped out, thankfully it didn't break lower on me, but otherwise it ended up inching back up a little bit after here. I got out at like, what was it, 333? Look on my other screen here. Really want me to, one sec. Yeah, just about 333, 332 in a fractional. So give me a quick moment. Just want to make sure that we're good on YouTube right now. Again, just doing our new lay out our new stream here set up. Yeah, we're good to go there. Perfect. All right, so point being, I got out like a little early, but every trade begins with the entry, and every entry begins with a big level. So, if Bookmap had a pretty large iceberg order out there on the bid, that would solidify my case even further. But I was more so just using like the support from the chart, and thankfully it built out. It could have taken a loss here, but it ended up building up a little bit, took a little money, not as much. Now, my second trade on this, I took a little bit more out of. I wish I was still holding on though, right? Can't do everything at once. But point being is that here, resistance at 4. A 224,000 share sell order showed up here at $4. Now, right away, I'm on a coaching call with one of our students. I'm telling her, I'm like, it's the first time it's moving up here. So I wouldn't be as jumpy to buy this stock at 385, at 388, just because you don't know if it's going to kiss that level at all or try and test it or nip it, whatever. It might just generally hold under that and then come back down. So I don't want to take an entry that's too close to the sun, right? And I am thinking the first test that it does actually make, if it were to, I would expect for it to fail, right? Pop and drop. Broke right over it though, right? So it did what I did not initially expect for it to do. Broke right over 4, moved up 30 cents, right? So, much like I had you answer for me, I'm going to answer this for you right now. When a stock breaks over resistance and it runs, resistance should look to become support. Now, one thing I just wanted to see here. Looks like this order got pulled. This order that was out here at 472. Really brief, just want to see this. Yeah, this order showed up at 9:45 in the morning, 261K. So that would be your next level in theory here, but this order got pulled. Now, point being is that once I got in, it was after this point here, dipped under over right here, I jumped in, and then at that point ended up squeaking out at like 425, 423 on the way back down here. Just realized it wasn't going to break, but resistance flip into support, and every trade at that point gives me the chance to go with upward momentum. If it were to have just failed back down afterwards, then I'm just taking a small loss, because if it's not going to hold over 4, if it's going to break lower from this little point, then I'm out, right? So money's money, but damn, I wish I hung into this, of course, after. It actually nipped lower here at first. It came back down, broke below 4 pretty hard, went down to 375 or whatever there, and then came back up. So there was one more entry that someone could have gotten, and once it broke back over 4 right here, ran up pretty well. Now at this point, look what's happening live. So we had that resistance that was out here at 472. It was out there for a little while, granted. It was out there for like, an hour and a half. So you still want to treat that as a potential level, but afterwards here, it's like actually holding it as support. Right here is like decent flipping of this line from 471, 472. It actually flipped it into support, even though that order got pulled, right? So it shows that that price was still kind of relevant, but the same to be said, if this isn't breaking higher, if it's not going to make that big move over 5, then it's going to pull back and it's going to break. So see what happens coming up right now, folks. Again, I normally wouldn't expect like a perfect move on this throughout the whole day. This wasn't so perfect, but from 10 o'clock in the morning to now, it's been building higher low, higher high. Now we're at a psychological level here, like $5, not just any one whole number level, dollar level. $5, right? A good old Abraham Lincoln. So with that, just to say like 603,000, even more shares out there at 5 as we had out here at 4. So I definitely would expect resistance to hold at first. The more that this does nip and test this level though, then there's a better chance for it to pop. I just think though it's up so much percentage wise already. Now 225%. You're at your next major resistance at 5. Just, you don't want to try and take an entry that's not really there. Not only that, but if you're in the trade already from $4 or 370-ish here, like I'd said, pre-market, little support, that actually became decent level later on. Just, this would be a good area to take the money and run, right? There was a thought where maybe this could fill a gap here this morning and just try and come back down to, not to say all the way to Friday, but at least to come back down maybe here or something. Clearly, it tried to do that, got so far, then came back up. So Now at this point, again, the more it can nip and test 5, there's a chance for it to go higher, but I wouldn't expect it right away. I wouldn't expect it instantly here. Not really too much, support going back from 2021, 2022, maybe like 594 here from like a couple of days in a row. That's not so reliable. So, if anything, that would be resistance, but I would just keep your focus on $5 coming up here, folks. See what happens here. All right, if you have any questions right now in regards to the Fubo, from head to toe, we covered it basically. The only thing I even didn't mention was the opening bell print, so we didn't even have a need to use that as much. But if you want to take a look at the opening print there this morning, you can do that. What do we got? This is shortly after the open. It's at the price 346. So this effectively became a level. And between that and the VWAP, it had a couple of moments of like consolidation, a couple of shake arounds, but once it broke that, it was already off and running at that point. The opening print here. All right, so on YouTube as well, let me know if you have any other questions there too. But for Lynn and Randy, Gillis, Kathleen, Robert, Barbara, Philip, Wendy, all of us here in chat, let me know as well. There we go. Got the chat right now on YouTube. It's on our new high-tech layout here. So didn't know if you were coming through here. So Leda saying resistance should become support. Absolutely, from earlier. And one of our attendees here, Ghost Wind. I like the name. Sold at the pre-market high. Good for you. Very nice. Congrats. That's where essentially, we're not trying to be perfect with the exit. It's nice to be. I'm just saying, we're not trying to be perfect with the exit as long as we're trying to be as pristine with the entry as we could be. Every trade begins with the entry. So, if you had missed out from earlier, that's okay. Let the stock move and do its thing if you don't feel as comfortable to enter. There's other trades out there too. We're going to go over a couple more stocks here in just a moment. Any info on GFAI? Thanks. We'll take a look at that next, actually, because that also made a decent little move for us. Not as good as Fubo, but hey, if you'd missed out on Fubo and if you felt like this wasn't up as much, then there's a chance for you to see if there's a good level here. Now, right away, you could say $3, major resistance, whole number level. So right away when the market opened up, this is easy, but it broke out over 3 and right after 935, right? So it's not like market just opened and it just popped. There were a couple of minutes of consolidation and it was already retesting 3 from earlier. So it's not as much of a surprise to see it rip 3 here and pop. Whatever we just saw happen on Fubo, it's happening here on GFAI. Resistance flipped to support, at least at first here, and it moved up higher. So this played out just as well as I'd say. Maybe not up as much percentage-wise, mind you, but let's take a look on GFAI, like at least the heat map there. Yeah, $3. Resistance was there, but even you had larger order out there at 285. Looks like that person like moved up even. Look at that. They moved their order up, right there to complement $3, and that became your better level. So that's actually a pretty simple one for us to go through just for the sheer fact there wasn't really as much in between. Maybe you could say 350, but there wasn't as big of a level at 350 as there was at 3. There wasn't as big of a level at 350 as there eventually became at 4. So, this eventually squeezed higher, but after 3, it basically moved up to 4, and that was it, right? Got close to 4, came back down. That's it. The news on GFAI. If you want me to go through the news on GFAI, I could probably do that pretty quickly. Let's see here. Oh, that's right. I also have to go through this before we finish up. Anyone here on YouTube a fan of GameStop? Anyone here remember what happened back in 2021? I forgot to grab my tinfoil here, but I got to make my tinfoil hat. A little conspiracy theory stuff going on with GameStop. I'll talk to you about that in just a moment. But GFAI, what's the news out on GFAI? Obviously, AI company. Guardforce AI tells Benzinga, blah, 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 blah. I guess they're accelerating their AI agent capabilities. That's the news. There's a whole headline involved here, but I guess they're enhancing their product, developing further into the AI business, AI agents. It's like the new hot buzzword that you might hear on YouTube and social media, X. It's not just AI, it's AI agents. And it's starting to become way above my knowledge level at this point. But, that's the news that came out on GFAI this morning. I was hoping to see a decent move up on BBAI just to complement it. And my stubbornness got me into like 2 separate trades on this, a break even, then basically a break even, both -1. But just the GFAI was the better mover of the two, right? So eventually I came to my senses. I'm like, okay, let's not bash our head against the wall here so often on that slow stock when this is up more, this is in the news, more people are watching this stock. We're human beings. So sometimes it'll happen to Fausto, it'll happen to me, where we might have an opinion on something and we kind of stay with that opinion. And, it might work out, but there's a better stock within that sector that's just moving so much nicer, right? So just got to drop the ego, drop the emotion, and just focus on the better opportunity. So I missed out on this initial run up here when it first popped and moved over 3. I got the entry, where was it? I think it was off 350. Just go back to my book map here because the level, it was there. I think it was when it rebroke 350, or maybe it was when it broke the highs here. I just wanted to try and take the entry. Not a big profit. It wasn't a big move. But at that point, again, we're also heading into 10:30 reversal time. So I felt like compelled to take the trade. If it was from 350, I could double check, but maybe it was off the highs. But once it broke either way, I thought there was a better case to see 4. Just didn't happen, right? It didn't move up to 4, didn't kiss 4, break over it. But we're pretty much right around that point within the morning, give or take 15 minutes. We're at reversal hour. Maybe it's at 10:45, maybe it's at 10:15. Within this vicinity, this is where you're typically expecting things to fall off, right? So unfortunately, not every trade is Fubo, where it makes these perfect moves up throughout the day, but otherwise there, a bunch of stocks right around that 10:30 time ended up eventually pulling back. All right, back to the YouTubes here, just seeing if I'm missing out on any other chat right now. Looks like we are good to go. So otherwise, all of our students here inside our live trading room, actually, little housekeeping note for you. And if you want to join us inside our live trading room, actually, stay tuned. I'll show you the page to go to right before we finish up. I'll actually type it here, I believe, coming up. I think I have the capability to do that. ctu.co/trial. Now, if you join us inside our live trading room for next week's Traders Talk, you got to be inside our live trading room. You got to be a member. You got to be a student. You're going to be eligible for a raffle. We're going to raffle off a coaching pack for you. So again, if you're on YouTube right now, actually go right to that link, ctu.co/trial, this page right here. Join us for Traders Talk next week. You got to be inside our live trading room, though, to be eligible. But we're going to raffle off a coaching pack. We did this at the beginning of last year, too. And we'll do those a little bit more frequently throughout this 2025. But Fubo, we'll see if this can keep pushing. Let's get... Jobby here to go back to this. Yeah, this never came back up. So, this ended up holding basically under 10. You had a little resistance above it too, but it's just the sheer fact if it's going to at least re-break 10 here, there's the thought for that breakout and move up much higher. It just held under it perfect, and that was it. All right, now let's get to GameStop. Let's get to some good old GameStop. So, long story short on this is basically for me to say, this is speculation. This is not anything that I know that other people don't know of. This is just theory. This is speculation. At least the first part of it was. So a couple of things are intertwined into my GameStop saga right now. For instance, I think I'd shown this a few weeks ago in a Traders Talk workshop much like this. There was a little technical analysis. I was actually looking at the GameStop long-term chart, the monthly chart, and I saw some like tech analysis stuff I was just playing with. I was just messing around with my charts, some indicator crap, and I saw some like signal for a buy. It was on the monthly. Oh, that's actually pretty interesting. The last time it gave me a signal on the monthly like this, it was back in 2021 when it popped. So that was the first reason that led me to come to this. I'm like, oh, well, based off this trend, there's the thought for this to try and make another pop. Maybe like a couple weeks after that, our friend Roaring Kitty, if you're familiar with him, Keith Gill, full name, Roaring Kitty, Deep Effing Value on Reddit, we'll call it, basically to say, He's starting to post again. He's on social media posting these stupid pictures, these stupid little mini clips of things from shows. He's being all secretive, right? Now, when that had happened, we saw like a little move up at first here. Nothing too much. Nothing much. Actually, this pop here back from May into June was actually the last time before a couple of weeks ago when he was very active on social media. This month back in last year in May, that's when GameStop last made its run from him, from 10 up to 65. Yeah, that's pretty good to me. I would take that. I think, though, that there's a case to see a hell of a lot more. Now, I'll try and explain a couple things to you here on this, call on this in this workshop, but a lot of it is still way above my knowledge level. I'm not going to talk out of pocket, talk out of my league. Do your own due diligence, all that good stuff. A couple things though with this, and this first part is just certified fact. This part is undeniable. A couple weeks ago, someone ended up just launching some absurd out of the money option play on GameStop. It was for the strike price 125. And the expiration date is still set for Jan 17. That was the expiration date of those contracts. My thought process is this on that. It's either one of, two types of people. It's either someone that knows something is definitively about to happen. It's a $3 million valuation of the contracts. So they did $3 million worth of $125 OTM calls. They either know something that obviously we're about to find out, or it's some degenerate. It's some, trust fund baby degenerate gambler out there that is just throwing a dart on the wall and hoping it lands. Smart money is not always big. Big money could sometimes be quite dumb. So that could always be the case, right? I want you to know that I know that. But this is where I did a lot of digging and research online and hearing other people's theories and stuff. Basically, if you're familiar with the situation back in 2021, Credit Suisse got destroyed, right? On the whole saga with GameStop and the shares to short. UBS ended up inheriting their problem. And that basically kind of situated it for the meantime. Long story short, without trying to explain more than I should, basically UBS has to make do on the missing shares of GameStop that are shorted. So if they have to cover shares to short that people are expecting them to, then this is going to skyrocket. Is that why Roaring Kitty is making all of these new posts the last couple of weeks? Is he, kind of teasing this to happen? Because actually, he posted the last 2 Wednesdays in a row, December 25th, Christmas, and then actually last Wednesday, both on Wednesdays. Do not be surprised if Wednesday night, not the morning, but Wednesday night, he makes another post. And with that, there might be even more details involved with what may be happening coming up. Again, I got my tinfoil hat on here right now, just speaking conspiracy and theory and all that good stuff. But I've been calling this out for now the last 3 weeks. So I'm in on this as a swing. I'm in from 30.36. I'm up like $1 on some shares. I got some calls myself that are a little slightly out of the money. They're not $125. But it's just to say, though, that this is going to be a big focal point for me, at least for the next month, we'll say. I said by the end of December there's a chance, and I said from that point, maybe there's a chance it could be the inauguration, after the new administration's in. There's a thought to that happening. But then for that person that did the $3 million in out-of-the-money contracts set to expire on Jan 17, well, that person either knows something, and the stock is going to fly before January 17th, or that was just a degenerative play and they're just some trust fund baby gambler, right? So that's just where I'm pointing out. There is the thought to that happening, but be on the lookout. Wednesday, January 8th, if he makes another little post on social media, maybe this time giving us just another clue for what's about to come. Now, he had made a post about January 9th. He made some elaborate picture of Time Magazine, little clues. And he has the numbers 0109, meaning let me me actually pull this up here if I can. This might be even easier for me to just drag this up here in front of you here and just show you. This is his Twitter feed right now. So, Roaring Kitty. All right. So, basically, this is him posting on the Wednesdays. This is the post here. Notice the numbers 0109 0420. A lot of people are speculating that this GameStop run now is set to begin on January 9th and go until basically end of April. That's what people are speculating this to be. Now, he had posted this on December 5th, like a month ago. So, technically, if that were to be correct, if that's what this really means, then we still got a few more days to see this shake out, baby, right? It's January 6th. It's not the 9th yet. Now, this leads us to a little, we'll say coincidence or just, it happens in life, whatever. Well, of course, due to, the passing of Jimmy Carter, the market is being closed on the 9th. This was posted before President Carter had passed. So, obviously, Roaring Kitty was kind of alluding to January 9th here, I believe. But with the markets now closed on the 9th, it's going to be pretty interesting. See what happens, if not even from Wednesday the 8th, then maybe it's Friday the 10th. Maybe it'll just end up being a clean week on Monday the 13th then. Who knows? But within the next week, we're going to come back to this in 1 week from now. And we're going to see, am I either right on this or am I either just some conspiracy theorist? We're going to find that out. What's my goal for BTBT? Great question from Kathleen as well. Let's move away from GameStop. Let's go over BTBT. So BTBT is a stock that I jumped into from last week. It was a swing trade from Friday, I believe we had called it out on, and during class I jumped in, or maybe it was like right after class. It ended up breaking over 340. I got in right off 340. There's my entry. So once it broke resistance there, broke the highs, took the entry. At the time, I'm just explaining this for everyone. At the time, I just meant for that to be a day trade. But it popped so nicely at first. I said, wow, okay, well, let me look long term. I know this is a Bitcoin stock, of course. They actually have good operating cash flow. I looked into that too. This has the chance to be a very good swing trade, especially once Bitcoin really starts pumping back up again. So I think now I'm in the driver's seat on this trade as a swing. I'm going to retain this whole position now as a swing, I believe. We'll see what happens. If it ends up dumping back down pretty harsh, I'll obviously reconsider and look to get out at some point. But to answer Kathleen, what's the target? What's the goal? This is where you have to ask yourself, what is your goal with this trade? It's not about the money. It's about how long are you trying to hold into the trade. Did you put funds into BTBT that you normally use for day trading? If so, perhaps you're going to be more keen to get out on a sharper pop, right? If it goes up 20%, let's say tomorrow, you might look to take the profit and run, put that money back into a day trade somewhere else. If you are swing trading this and it's like swing trading money, it's just part of your swing trading portfolio and it's not interrupting other, trades that you're taking, then this is where I would say that I'm long-term bullish on Bitcoin for the next, 10 months, 11 months, we'll say. So if you have the patience, if you have the money to hold on to it, it's not interrupting other trades. I just think that we're going to see this continue to go up. I just think that over time we'll see it continue. Now, it's not going to be as directly correlated to Bitcoin as IBIT is, right? I mean, BTBT is a mining company. First thing, they're a Bitcoin mining company, or maybe even Ethereum as well. They stake Ethereum, if I'm not mistaken, too. They're big into it, but they're not exactly Bitcoin. They're not exactly the BlackRock Bitcoin Trust ETF. Now, on the other end of that, looking at the other mining stocks, from the last year and a half, Mara's done jack, right? Long term, we're saying. Long term, Mara has done jack. Nothing. CLSK went down, right? Iron had a decent 2024. A couple of them moved up over time. Point being is that they're not outperforming. They're not performing as equally as Bitcoin. So if you're simply bullish Bitcoin, I would just focus on IBIT. Focus on that ETF. That's it. If you want to get exposure to like different subsectors of Bitcoin? Do the mining companies? Do the exchanges like Hood and Coinbase? The platforms and the exchanges there. Those are different, right? I like at least looking at one of the mining companies and for a short-term swing, let's say whether it be for a couple weeks, a month or so. But if Bitcoin really starts to rocket up and we get that 125,000 move that I told you by the end of February, I think by the end of February we'll see 125,000. I said that for the last 6 weeks now at this point. So if we do get that larger pop before then or during that time, then that would be a possible area for me to sell. But I don't really have a number in mind here for you. If you want me to just do a quick rummage through here and like play around with like my fib levels and stuff, absolutely, we could do that. I mean, the stock had a huge run back in 2020, so it's not to say it can't repeat itself here. Let's see. The only fib I'd be able to use here for extensions would probably be something like this, which I kind of don't like, but oh shoot, what did I just do there? Oh, did I just do a different one? Let's see. There we go, a little bit better. I mean, they're usable. It's usable here. This didn't hold so nicely at first, $4.59. This got choppy. But over time, maybe 623, maybe 787. Like those would be technical price levels based off what it did back from the beginning of 2023, built support. This is like messy. This is all sorts of messy. So I'm not a fan of using that with like the Fibonacci stuff I just showed. But point being is that once we at least look to break the highs here around 5 and change, then we'll have a more serious conversation about targets and where to expect BTPT to possibly top off at, over the next several months ahead. That's all. All right, folks. So I'll tell you what, I think that we're just about to wrap things up here for Traders Talk today. Let's just see if there's anything else that we'll kind of just rummage through here before we finish up. NVIDIA had a great pop today. We'd called that out off the resistance at 150. Again, same strategy here as we just said before in other trades. The more times that it's nipping and testing that level in a smaller instance, not in a larger instance, but in a smaller one, it's more prone to pop. So there's a couple of points where you may have gotten smally bit or slightly bit on a pop and drop, but it ended up just retesting, broke higher. So NVIDIA might look to even run higher before the close today. It's building base here. It's trying to go back up. There's a thought to that. Go back to my jobby trade. This thing is just a giant tease, isn't it? Yeah, I'm not going to be as vested in this trade now for the afternoon if there's other opportunities that are just simply better. Hey, look what's popping back up right now. I don't know if Roaring Kitty just listened to me the last 10, 15 minutes. I don't know. No, I'm kidding with that, of course. We'll see what happens long term on that. But yeah, otherwise, Fubo, maybe if this could build support heading into the early afternoon. This is where, again, you don't want to fly too close to the sun. So it's good to see resistance flip, like right here, 430. That's a pretty clean top level right there. If we can see support get touched here and then the bounce, oh, that would make for a clean entry, wouldn't it? So I focus on levels first, and then if the stock comes down to them or up to them, then I'll react from there, right? Any thoughts on SoFi before the earnings? Ooh, when are the earnings? Ghostwind, I got you on YouTube here. When are the earnings? That's probably the one thing I didn't really do this week. Definitely the one thing I didn't do this week. I got my fancy setup now here on YouTube right now. No, but aside from that, though, really, I didn't look at the earnings calendar. So I figured just coming off a holiday week that we wouldn't really have much at all. Let's see. Earnings. Dyslexic. There we go. Let's go this month. The 27th. Okay, the 27th. So in about a few weeks' time, right? I don't know the first thing about SoFi as far as their financials go, as far as their cash flow situation, whatever it may be. Let's take a look. Why not? So last 3 quarters, they hopefully have been making money elsewhere, but their cash flow has been dropping off quite a bit over the last 3 quarters, right? You could just see this number drastically drop off over and over in a row. So that to me is just something that stands out. I'm not saying they're going to report bad earnings or whatever. That's just something that stands out to me. That's all. Do equity. I can't really see that on the bottom. Assets are kind of the same, small jump up, I guess. I mean, they've been on a tear long term. So, looking at SoFi, the graph here, they've been on such a great move. So we've been calling them out. We've been day trading them, honestly, more than we've been swing trading them. It's been as good of a swing trade, obviously, but I'm just pointing out we've been more day trading the stock. It's been great either way. But as far as charting goes, just make sure I can go back as much as I can here. Well, that's a nice support area right here, back from 21 into 22. Just sick base here. This thing just built out so nice, and it tried to break higher. Obviously, didn't get the job done. Came back down. Eventually, support broke, right? So this is where support should become resistance. Well, it blew right over resistance, right? Where you would expect resistance here, it blew right over it. Like on this weekly candle, it probably shook down at first, but then it popped right back up. So you know what? If this is going to break resistance and fly off of it, not just make a little stupid pop drop, if it actually runs off of it, then that would be where I would anticipate resistance to then flip again. So I'm just shooting from the hip here when I say this, but in the event where SoFi posts bad earnings, or if it doesn't match what the street's looking for them to do, and if they have just some sort of negative reaction at first, then this would be such a great area to try and get support. And if not even there, then you could even use last week's low, because it's not that far off from it, right here, right? Kind of this area. That would be a great pullback area if you can get it. If. Now, obviously, earnings are 3 weeks away, so who knows what's going to happen across the whole market, SoFi including, over the next 3 weeks. So that would just be the thought process there. We'll focus on it more as it comes towards that 27th, the earnings date. We try not to hold going into earnings. If you have it as an investment or as a longer term trade, then of course that's different. If they pay out a dividend, even better. But just to mention, as far as what we do inside our live trading room, and if this is more so meant at first as a day trade, then we'll take it day by day. But if you are looking for a swing, I try and at least react after the earnings come out. There is a large amount of people online that try and trade and jump into a stock right before the earnings, the day before, the day of. If they know something about the company and they are extremely confident, then all the more to you, right? All the more to you. But if you're doing it more on the side of speculation, and if you have to look yourself in the mirror to try and sell yourself into why this might be, don't force it. That's where I'd say I'd rather wait. I'd rather wait to see the reaction, because if you are bullish on them long term and they just have some bad reaction, if the street just wasn't a fan off the initial report, then this might happen. You might get a pullback and then slingshot, right? If it pops up at first, then you might do what's called a power earnings gap. That's where it's crazy that I'm using the SPY on this here of all things, but basically this effectively did a power earnings gap. It gapped up after the election. This is the SPY, obviously. It's not a company, it's not earnings, but basically it pulled back after and then it moved up. That would be something you would look for: the gap, the run, and then the support build after. So those are things I kind of look at more than anything, especially if I'm looking to play the earnings report itself. We try and at least react after the earnings come out. But, hey, everyone's got their own cup of coffee in the morning. Some like almond milk, some like it black, some like whole milk, some like raw milk. I haven't gotten my coffee yet. That's why I'm kind of thinking coffee here. All right, folks, we are going to finish up. Actually, it's 1 o'clock sharp. I got to make me a cup. Folks, hey, if you're interested in joining us inside our live trading room, if you're on social media, that's not the link I wanted to show you. This is the link I wanted to show you. If you're on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, etc., again, go right down to the bottom there in the comments, ctu.co/trial, and take you right to this page here. Now, do this. So by next Traders Talk, next Monday afternoon, I'm going to raffle off a pack of coaching, but you have to be a member. You have to be a member inside our live trading room to be eligible. So for Andrea, Lawrence, Gillis, Gary, David, Elmer, Kerry, Wendy, Lynn, and Randy, you are all eligible. You're good to go, but we'll raffle off a nice pack of coaching next week. Join us inside our live trading room, though, for that. Join us otherwise, though, right? We're going to continue the commentary all throughout the day today. Next broadcast coming up at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, just for the afternoon meeting. And we'll go from there, folks. All right?